Hello viewers, we have successfully completed designing this front-end part of the login page. At this point, you should realize that this page, whatever it is that we have designed, it is only the front-end part of the page. It is not connected with the back-end server. What I mean is, even if this login page allows the user to type a, say for example, username and password, and also it allows the user to click on a button. But the thing is, when the user clicks on that button, nothing happens. And in this part of the video, we are going to add that functionality to this login page. You can think it of, we are going to connect this front-end part of the login page with the back-end server. I'll type the code in front of you and I'll show you how to achieve this step by step gradually. But before actually typing the code, let me spend a few minutes to tell you the background story. If you understand the background story, then following the coding part will be extremely smooth for you. Okay, the background story is something like this. The user will type the username and password and the user will click on this go button. As soon as the user clicks on this go button, we want to make an AJAX call to the server. In the call, in the request, we will pass whatever it is the username the user has typed, whatever it is the password the user has typed, and also will specify what PHP program on the server side we want this AJAX call to be handled. Now, when the web server receives this AJAX call, it will execute that specific PHP program which will handle that AJAX call. Now, that program will contain mainly 3 steps. The first step will be to retrieve the username and the password from the request. See, we are passing the username and the password. So from the request, it will first retrieve the username and the password the user has typed. In the second step, what it will do is it means the PHP program. The PHP program will make a connection with the SQL server and it will execute necessary SQL queries to check if this username and password pairs are valid or not. Now, based on the results, based on the result that it received from the SQL server, there could be 3 possible situations. One is both the username and password, they are valid. The second one is the username itself doesn't exist, so there is no question of whether the password was right or wrong. And the third step is the username is there, but the password is not right. So these 3 possible situations might happen, and whatever it is, the server will create a response and it will send that response back to the client machine. Now, what the client does with this response, I'll come to that point. But before that, you see, there is one very crucial step we want to take on the server side. And that is, if the username and the password, both of them are right, in that case, on the server side, by making use of the concept of session variable, we will remember the current user ID. Now, why we would want to do that? I'll answer it in a moment. But before that, now let's see what the client machine will do when it receives a response. Now, if the client receives an error response, that is, if the situation was like this or that, in that case, the client machine will simply display in the login page, maybe here itself, okay, the username and password doesn't exist, or the password is wrong, or some error message. It will display on the in the login place. Okay, so that part is okay, fine. Now, the second thing is, if the situation was like this, if both the username and the password, they were right, in that case, what the client machine will do is, it will redirect the user to attendance.php page. So here, this page, you can write any page here, but the thing is that that page should exist on the server side. So we are not going to develop this page in this part of the video. We'll just use a dummy page as attendance page, and we'll redirect the user to this attendance page. Now, the question, why we had to remember this, in case of valid user and password, why we had to remember the current user ID. Because you see here, a client can, instead of requesting for the login page first and then providing username password and then actually accessing this attendance page, instead of doing this, what the client can do is the client can actually directly access for this attendance page, right? So in that case, for the server, there should be a way whether to tell like whether one is trying to access this attendance page directly or one is trying to access this attendance page through a valid login process. So for that purpose, remembering in case of valid username and password, remembering the current user ID in the session variable will help the server to distinguish between these two types of access. You will see the actual coding when I'll be doing the coding, but that is more or less the idea. Okay, then these are things that we are going to do in this part of the video. So we'll be doing some JavaScript code here to make the AJAX call and everything. We'll be writing the code for this AJAX handler page, and also we'll create this dummy attendance page. That's all we'll do. Okay, then let's type the code. I'll not speak much while typing the code. Rather, what I'll do is I'll simply type the code and I'll put some background music for your convenience. And I'll type the code in such a way that I'll type the code sort of gradually. I'll do the thing gradually, step by step. And after typing every block of code, I'll also show you the output. So that way you will know, okay, this block of code is written for that particular purpose. And after typing the code, obviously I'll give you a brief explanation of the overall code. Okay, then let's begin. Okay, we have finished coding. Let's see what is built. The user will type the username. Say the user types some random username, XYZ or something, password, some random password, and the user clicks on this login button. As soon as the user clicks on this login button, you can see at least something is happening. And what it is showing you is an alert has come. It is showing you that username doesn't exist. I typed here a random username, so it says like, okay, that username doesn't exist. Okay, that is true, right? Now say I type here a username which exists there. Okay, say for example there is one user by the name Paul, and now I type some random password, not the actual password. I'm typing here some random password and clicking on this login button. You can see it's now showing me it is wrong password. Okay, that is also right. Now I click on OK, and then suppose now I type here the actual password, which is 123, and I click on login button. You can see as soon as I click on login now, the page has been redirected to a different page. Now it is not the login page, it is showing you the attendance.php. Now it is showing you the content of some other page. Here right now it is actually a dummy page. Right now I have not built this attendance page, which I'll be building in the coming part of the video, but that is not our main focus right now. Okay, so here in this page what you can see is after redirecting, you can see this page contains a simple text, and there is this logout button. Why that button is important? If the user wants to perform logout operation, then the user will be clicking on this button. Say the user clicks on this logout button, then what you can see is that the user is automatically again redirected to the login page. Now suppose a user directly tries to access the attendance page. Let's see what happens then. So instead of writing login here, suppose in the browser the user types their attendance.php. In that case, you can see even if I type their attendance.php, the user is still in the login page. You know, it is still in the login page. You can see I can type here one more time, attendance.php. This is the page actually the user is trying to access, but no matter how many times he or she tries, the user still remains here in this login page. And this is happening because of the server remembering the current user ID. You remember that point? Yes. Okay. Now suppose now the user types their one valid user ID, RCB is 1, and then password 123 again, and clicks on login. The user is now logged in. Now this time, instead of clicking on logout, suppose the user closes that tab. Okay, that tab is closed. Now since the user has not logged out, then that particular user will be directly able to access the attendance page. See here, attendance.php now, and if I press enter, then the user will be redirected to that page, because in the same session now the user is trying to since the user has already logged in, then there is no need again to perform the login operation. But instead of doing that, if the user performs logout and then closes the tab and then directly tries to access this attendance page, then as you know, this time the user will not land in the attendance page. Rather, the user will be again automatically by the server redirected to the login page. This is the page. Okay, so that's what we have done up to this point. Now let me take you through the code briefly and tell you the measure points there. And also at the end, I'll be telling you what are the measure modifications that we might want to do and that we will be doing in the next part of the video. So this is the folder structure right now for our project. Then we have this. First, I did some modification in the login.js part here. Okay, just to capture the click event of the button. You can see here. This click event of the login button, I'm calling a function try login. This just to manage the code properly, I created here a different function. I could have written whatever the code I wrote here, I could have written the code directly here, but I preferred to create a different function, say try login. Now inside this function, what am I doing is, first I'm extracting the username and the password. I'm checking if both of them are not empty, and if it is the case, then I'm performing the measure step. See here, the only one step is taken, that is the AJAX call step. Okay, so in the AJAX call, what we see when we perform the AJAX call, we have to specify a few things. The first thing is the URL, that is the on the server side what file it is that is going to handle this AJAX call. You can see this is login.ajax. So on the server side, I also wrote the code for this particular AJAX file. This is a PHP file that will be handling this AJAX call. See, these AJAX call we are making, see here from where we are making this call. This AJAX call we are making from login.js file. Okay, this is the JavaScript file on the client side. Now from there we are making the AJAX call, but we want this call or this AJAX call to be handled by one server side program, and that program is written in this login AJAX file here. AJAX handler login AJAX. It's a PHP file. Whenever it is a PHP file, you understand that that file will be executed by the server machine or the server computer. Whenever it is a JavaScript file, you understand that that file will be executed by the client machine or the browser in the client machine. Okay. Okay, now URL you'll be specifying the type. Like there are two ways you can perform an HTTP request. One is post, one is get. Here I choose to perform using post operation. Then data type. See all this communication in AJAX, the data from the client machine to the server machine, it will be transferred in the form of JSON objects, and from the server machine to the client machine again the data will be passed in the form of a JSON object. So that's why here it is JSON. Then the actual data, you remember we will be passing we had to pass the username and the password, that thing to the server machine. So that's what I'm doing here. So I'm creating a key, and then there is this value. The value is UN. This is a variable actually. You see this variable contains the value of the whatever it is that the text the user has typed in this particular text box. Similarly, I'm creating a key, and against that I'm storing this value PW. You see here, whenever it is in curly braces, you understand that is a JSON object. JSON objects are nothing but key value pairs. You see this is the key, this is the value, this is the key, this is the value, this is the key, this is the value. This is one JSON object. And if you see that, you see this entire AJAX call. We want to perform this AJAX call. This entire AJAX call from here to here, it's written in curly braces. It means whatever the details we are specifying it in the form of a JSON object. That is true. You see here, this is the key, and colon, this is the value for the key, and then the comma, key colon value, and then comma. Here is same thing. It's a JSON inside JSON. Now this JSON is inside this outer JSON. Okay, I think you got the point. Now here also it is the same thing. It's a key colon value and then comma. Okay, now in the data field, what we are specifying is what the user has typed in the username field, the password field, and along with that I'm creating another key called action, and there I'm writing some string verify user. This key will be, or this part will be used, or this information will be used in this login AJAX to decide actually which block of code we want to execute. If they're like, see here, you can use the same AJAX file to handle multiple AJAX requests. In that case, this extra information will become helpful. Okay. Okay, then along with these keys, another key is before send, and see here, before send, success, and error. These are three other keys. Now against these keys I'm storing a function. See this, against this key it is a function. For this key the value is a string. For this key the value is a string. For this key the value is a JSON object. For this key the value is a function. So there are three such keys like I'm using: before send, success, and error. Before send means just before making the AJAX call on the client machine, if we want to perform some operation, that we can do here. Right now I have not done anything, but at the end of the video I'll tell you a good use case of this before send function. Okay, so I'll discuss that thing at the end. Now say for the time being it is empty. I kept it empty. That is, I do not want to do anything before sending the call or before making the call. Okay, now success is this block of code, like whatever the function I specify in against this success key, that function will be executed whenever the AJAX call is successful. Now, when I say successful, it doesn't mean that the username and the password should be there in the database. Not in that sense. Successful, it means like, okay, we make the AJAX call, we made the AJAX call, whatever it is the function the server on the server side we wanted to execute, that was executed and it returned us some result. Okay, so if it is the case, then we will consider, okay, now AJAX call was successful, and whatever it is the result returned by the server, that result is automatically it will get stored in this RV, or whatever the variable name you write here, it will be stored in that variable. Now, based on the like return value, what we wanted to do is like if the status is all okay, it means if the server returned like username is also there, password is also there, then what we're doing is from the client machine we wanted to redirect the page to attendance.php. That's what I'm doing here, document location replace attendance.php. So if everything is fine, it will be redirected to a different page. But if the status is not all okay, whatever the other reason, like wrong password, username doesn't exist, in that case we will simply alert. You can see like if I type a wrong password, it shows like wrong password. So that thing is coming because of this. Okay, this part is clear, I guess. Now let's see what I have written here in login.ajax file. Now how this call is actually handled. Okay, now login.ajax, if I open here login.ajax, you can see these are some basic stuff I did, but mainly you see first thing that we do is username post username, like in the post array. Now what is post? Basically post is a like global server side array where all the values or all the inputs are there when the user tries to access a page using post method. See here, when we made that AJAX call, we mentioned there like our method will be post. So all our input will be there in the global server side array post underscore post. That's what it is here. So post, there are some other server side global arrays. Say for example request array is there, for example the server array is there. So you can get into those details of your own, but I'm assuming you have some basic understanding. But if you have any confusion regarding this, or if you want me to explain these concepts separately like in more detail, then you can let me know it in the comment section. I'd like to do that. But for the time being, let's say we are assuming okay, we can follow. So here from the post array, first we are extracting the username and the password. See here these keys, how we know what are the keys we have to write here, whatever it is the keys that we use to pass those inputs. See here login.js, if you see the username was a key, password was a key, and then action was a key. So the same you are doing here. See username key, password key, and somewhere here I have written like action key. Okay, now once it is done, then we are making a database connection, and then we are creating a new we are creating an instance of a new class called faculty. Now see this is also here we are creating a new instance of the class database, but I showed you actually how I created that database class in my previous part of the video. But this faculty details class I wrote in this part of the video. So let's first see that. See here, I could have directly made the database connection here itself and then try to verify the username and password. But I just wanted to make the code more maintainable. So for that reason, I rather than doing it here, I wrote a separate class called faculty details. Let's see first here, what does this faculty details class looks like. So this faculty details class is in our database. See here where it is. I have included this file. You can see that attendance db database and faculty details.php. So attendance db database, inside that this faculty details.php I have created. Now inside this class, this only one public function is there. That the name of the function is verify user. What this function is doing, let's see. It takes three input, one the connection object, and then username and the password, whatever the username and the password. The task of this function is only to verify like whether this pair exists there or not. So for that reason, I created a command, then I created a prepared statement, then I executed the command, and based on the results that I get, I created an associative PHP array like this RV here, and I am returning that particular array. That array will contain two information. One is the ID and the status. The ID by default it will be -1, indicating that okay, it's an invalid ID, and status by default it will be error. Now if the username and the password is a match, then I will store ID of the faculty in the ID field or ID key, and I'll write all okay in the status field. But if the username exists, the password is not a match. In that case, I'll keep the ID, the genuine ID, actual ID, but in the status field, I'll write wrong password. Okay. And in the third case, it might happen that the username itself doesn't exist. So in that case, I'll write ID is equal to -1 because there is no user ID in that case, and status username doesn't exist. Okay. Now after creating this, one of the RV array will take any one of these four different values. Like if the connection was not possible due to some error, we could not connect with the database. In that case, this will be the return value. Okay, but suppose we make the connection, and based on the three situations, either this one, or this one will be the return value. But whatever it is, that array, associative array, will return that array from where this function was called. Okay, now let's see how this function was I made use of this function. So let's say now where we were AJAX handler and login AJAX. You see here, I created a database class. So I created an instance of a database class to make the connection, and then I'm creating an instance of the faculty class, and then I'm calling. See here on the faculty object, I'm calling this particular function verify user. Now for the connection, I'm passing DBO, whatever the username typed, whatever the username received, whatever the password received. I'm passing everything to this function. This function, we know it will return us an associative array. So whatever it is the array, based on that array, see here, we had to know whether it was all okay or not. So if it is all okay, then we are starting the session, and we are remembering the ID of the user in a session variable called current user. That's all we are doing. And after that, whatever it is the return value, it is a PHP associative array. We are converting it to a JSON object, and then that JSON object we are sending back to the client. So the converting an associative array to a JSON object is done by this particular function, JSON encode. This is an inbuilt PHP function that will take an associative array and will create the equivalent JSON object. You can see the similarities between JSON objects and PHP associative array here, right? By this time, you might have noticed that. They're the same thing, we just write them in different ways. Okay, JSON is JavaScript's notation. JSON is actually, okay, you can consider like it is JavaScript's notation, and PHP associative, like it is PHP's way of doing the thing. Okay, it is same as, like, say for example, just briefly, let me take some time. Say for example, if you have to say like in English, suppose if you say I eat rice, it means I eat rice, right? But suppose I can say the same thing in my own mother tongue, like in Assamese, so moi bhat khao. Both of them are the same thing. Only thing is that different languages we know the same thing we can represent differently in different languages. Okay, don't mind that. Now, what I was telling you is I was about to show you the similarities. Here you can see that similarity. You can see here this associative array. It is also a key value pair. Like this is the key, this is the value, this is the key, this is the value. But only thing is that we're writing it in a bit different way than the way we wrote here in this thing. See here, key value, key value. Syntax is slightly different, right? Other than that, concept wise it is the same. But anyhow, let's now you come back here and then it returns us the client that the JSON object, whatever it has received. Now on the client machine, again I already told you that part. Now on the client machine, it will be stored in RV, and based on these RV status, either it will be redirected to a different page, or on the same page the error will be shown. Now let's see this attendance.php page. You see here, when the user is redirected to this page, obviously that page should be there, and for that reason I wrote the minimum code for this page. And you see the code here, it will be here. This is your attendance.php. Yeah, it is the minimum code. Now by default, initially it looks something like this, hello, and there will be a button, logout button. But the thing is, on that page we had to put that filter, like if the user is trying to access it directly or through a login page. So that is that is where we had to write some logic, and that logic we wrote using PHP. See here, this is the PHP block, PHP tag. Inside that we wrote this block of code. So we'll start the session, we'll check if current user is there, set in the session variable or not, no matter what it is. But if it is set, there is no objection. But if it is not set, then what the server will do is, instead of proceeding further, it will redirect the user to the login page. Okay, and then die means what? There is no point of proceeding further. Stop the process here itself. Okay, done. So suppose the current user is set, in that case nothing will be done here. This else block will be skipped. It means there is no die, there is no redirecting. After this, automatically control will reach here. It will generate this HTML page as the output, and that HTML page will be sent back to the user. On the browser, the user will see this page with a hello and a button. You remember that point, right? Now on the click event of this button, I wanted to perform that logout operation. Now I did it in the same way, that is, I did it through AJAX handling. Okay, let's see how did I do it. Say this is the button, so I wanted to perform some operation when the user clicks on this button, so I included a custom JS file here with this HTML file, that is your logout.js. Now in that, where this file is, it is in JS folder. So in JS folder, logout.js. Now here, see here, I'm handling like the click event of logout button, and when the user clicks on this logout button, I simply make an AJAX call again to the server. Okay, so on the server side, this is again, you see, I'm specifying the same key value pairs URL. Now this time the URL is different. AJAX handler logout ajax.php. Now AJAX handler logout ajax.php. This is the logout. This will be the block of code which will be executed when the server receives the AJAX call. But before seeing that, let's finish the rest of the JS code for this logout.js. See, it will make the AJAX call. And when it is successful, see here, when the user clicks on that logout button, it makes that AJAX call. It is successful. It means the logout is done. And then this time we want the user, the user to be redirected to the login page. So on success, the user will be redirected to the login page. But if it is a failure, it will simply display some message. Okay. Now let's see this logout AJAX file here, how the call is handled. Logout AJAX. Here we will simply start the session. We will unset the current user. That is, as soon as the user clicks on this login button, a request will be sent to the server indicating that okay, now the user wants to go out. So what the server will do is, whatever it has remembered, it was remembering, okay, this is the current user for this particular session, it will remove that memory from from its mind or something like that. Now that way, now user will not the server will not remember that user anymore, and once it is done, it will simply send a blank response to the client machine. And the client machine, on the client machine, you see here, on success, without, as soon as the call is successful on the client machine, we're assuming that okay, erasing that user from the memory is done. So now we are ready to redirect, so it will be redirected. Okay, that's all that about the overall code. If you have any doubts or queries, then people can let me know it in the comment section. Okay, now let's see what are the modifications that we can do or we should do at this point in our project. The two measures I found, and let's see them first. The first thing is that, you see, if I click here the username and the password, and I click on login, some wrong username password I'm specifying, click on login, I'm showing here a prompt, an alert, right? But instead of showing the user an alert, what I can do is that I can display the error message here itself, like below the login button here itself, like the username doesn't exist or the password is wrong or something. That is one small modification that we should do. And the other one is about these, that one I told you, right? You see here, when we make an AJAX call, specifically login AJAX, not login AJAX, here in the JS file login.js, when we make the call, now you see, we wrote success and error block, but before send block here, what we can do is, see, just before making the AJAX call, we can block the login page so that the user will not be able to click one more time on the login button. That is one way. Let's see what I mean by this. You see here, if I type this username and password, I type here, immediately I get the response. That's why I'm not filling it like I need something more here. Let's say, for example, I type here RCB and I type here 123. As soon as I click, I am immediately redirected to this attendance page. For that reason, we might not be able to see the importance of putting something or doing something just before making the AJAX call. But it might happen that actually when we make the AJAX call, due to the slow internet connection, because you see, when we deploy, obviously the client machine and the server machine, they will be two different computers. Maybe the client is accessing the page from US and the server is there in India, or maybe the server is there in US and the client is accessing the page from India, right? So that time, due to maybe slow internet connection or for any other reason, it might happen that when I click on this button, when I click on this When I type the username and password and I click on this login button, from the point I click and till the point I get the response, there might be some time duration. Let me show you, let me artificially create some delay. Okay, let's do it here. In this way I can do that. Say login AJAX here. Suppose just it got the response, but just before sending the response, the server does something. Okay, just to make the process a bit slower, I'll write a for loop. Say I add these for loops, like this for loop will go for 100,000 numbers of time. This will go 10,000. So 100,000 into 10,000. So that many times, this loop will be executed. It will take the server some time to actually, finish these two for loops. So let's see the effect now. Okay. So if I now refresh this page and I type here some username, say valid, invalid, anything, I type here and I click on this login button. Now see, the response is not coming immediately. The user might feel like, okay, what is happening? Didn't I click it properly or something? But the user has actually clicked it properly. Only thing is that it was taking some time to get the response back from the server. So to, at this point, it would have been nice. Now you see here at this point, it would have been nice for the user. At this point, it would have been nice for the user if we can, once the user clicks on this login button, if we can show some busy symbol to the user, like like loading symbol that goes round and round like that. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a spinner. We want to make this login page inactive, and we want to show here a spinner indicating the user that okay, something is going on. So instead of getting annoyed or getting panicked, just wait patiently. Okay, so that is something that is a very important feature we can add at this point in our project. Where we can do that, you see here, when I click on this button right now, it's directly it is making an AJAX call. So here, before sending this AJAX call, you can see this login.ajax. Before send this particular here, if we write some code, now this is the perfect place actually where we can like just before making the AJAX call, what we will do is we will show that busy symbol, we will show that spinner, and we'll make the login page inactive. We can do that thing. So this is a perfect use case for this before send feature in the AJAX call. Okay, these are the two modifications that we'll be doing. I'll squeeze both these two modifications in a short video, and I'll make it as the next part of the video. And once that is done, after that we'll go for developing the our measure page, the attendance page. That's all then, guys, in this part of the video. Hope you people have got some value out of this video, and at any moment of time, if you like this video, then please press the like button, and also let me know your feedback, or if you have any queries, or if you have any doubts, or you want me to explain some concepts in more details. All these things you can write in the comment section. Your comments are quite valuable for me, so please do not hesitate to do that. And if you're interested in more content like this, then certainly please subscribe to the channel. See you guys in the next part of the video. Till then, have a nice day.